So in this session, I'm going to cover 3 common misconceptions about reading acquisition. And we're going to look at some of the early warning signs of reading difficulties. We're going to look at understanding the why of reading struggles. And I'm going to provide you with some classroom support for struggling readers. So let's start with the misconceptions. So misconception number 1 is learning to read is a natural process. You may have heard this one before. Well, that is not true. Learning to read is not a natural process. Learning to read is a very complex human process. Children don't learn to read naturally. They have to be taught how to read. Children speak naturally because the brain is wired for speech. It's not wired for reading and writing. So we have to teach children explicitly how to read and write. The next misconception is that some children just need a little bit of time to catch up. Well, that's not true either, because the more we wait, the harder it will get for them. As children progress through second grade and third grade, the texts that they read become increasingly more complex. The vocabulary is harder, the sentence structure is harder. So if they don't know how to read, this will be even harder for them. So they're not going to catch up automatically if they are not provided with the needed interventions so that they can learn how to read and fill in those gaps. The third misconception is that kids will learn to read by just being read to. Well, that is not true either. We know that there are a lot of benefits for reading aloud. It builds vocabulary, it promotes a love for reading and books, but it doesn't teach decoding. Explicit instruction is necessary to teach children how to read. So let's look at some of the early warning signs. So if you're a teacher in the early grades or you're a parent that has a young child at home, you may see some of these warning signs, and this will tell you that your child is having some difficulty. So the first warning sign is that the child is struggling with sound letter correspondence. So the child might know some letters, but has a hard time mapping those letters to the sounds that represent them. Or the other way around, if you tell a child the sound, the child cannot recognize the letter that matches with that sound. Lack of high frequency word recognition. So these are those small words that appear a lot in the text, especially the early text that children read. Words like can, the, he, she, of, are. Those are high frequency words. They see them a lot in those early texts. And we start teaching those words to children early in kindergarten so that they can start reading those beginning texts. And if children are having a hard time recognizing these words, even though they've been taught those words, that's an early sign that there is a problem. The other warning sign is the inability to decode simple CVC words like dog and cat. Those are simple CVC words that are decodable. And if children are taught how to read those words and they're taught the vowels, the short vowel sounds and the consonant sounds, they should be able to decode those words. And if in first grade in first grade, the second half of first grade, they're still having trouble with reading those words, that's a sign that there is a problem. Their reading is slow or choppy. They're pausing a lot to decode every word. Again, if they've been taught those high frequency words and they're taught the letter sound correspondence in the phonics instruction, they should be able to read more fluently those early texts, and they shouldn't be stopping so much. If they're stopping to decode every word, that's another sign of difficulty. They're guessing at unknown words rather than sounding them out. If your child is guessing, they're not taking the time to look at the letters and decode the letters that are in the word, and they're just taking a wild guess, that's not a good. If their eyes are wandering on around the page, trying to look for any clues in the pictures so that they can read the word and not actually reading the words, not actually sounding out the letters, that's a problem as well. Their poor spelling. Often we hear that poor spelling is connected with poor reading because reading and writing are interconnected and one relies on the other. If they're not able to use their sound symbol correspondence to spell correctly, then they are having difficulties with reading. The second one is fluent reading but lacking comprehension. Again, the whole goal of reading is comprehension. So if they're reading, but then you ask them what did they read about, or you ask them a question about the text that they just read, and they cannot tell you what the meaning of it, then that's also a sign of poor reading or reading difficulties. Reading avoidance is another one. Because they are struggling so much or they finding reading a chore, they don't want to read, so they avoid the task of reading. So early detection matters. Very important. Reading is not just another school shop subject, it's the gateway to learning. By the end of second grade, the focus shifts from learning to read to learning to write, because as I said earlier, by second grade now the texts are becoming more complex. There's more vocabulary, there's a longer sentence structure, and if children don't know the foundation, the learning to read part, now they're not going to be able to get the meaning and learn and read to learn. So research shows that children who struggle to read in the early years will continue to struggle in third grade and beyond. So we really need to do something about it early. So let's look at understanding why some children struggle. So a very important metaphor is this visual that we see a lot, especially if you're in the education field, is the reading rope. This is Scarborough reading rope that she developed to explain the complex process of learning to read. So as you can see here, there are two domains. She uses this metaphor of the reading of the rope, which has these different strands. So you see the blue strands on the top. The big domain is the language comprehension part. And underneath the language comprehension part is the background knowledge, vocabulary, language structure, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge. All those are the components that are involved in the language comprehension part. This is the part that where, as a reader, you need to be able to understand what is going on in the text to get the meaning from the text. But this doesn't happen if the child doesn't know how to read. So this is where the part in the bottom there, those orange and red strands, is the word recognition part. This is what I was just talking about this is the part that contains those learn to read part, the phonological awareness, the decoding and the spelling and the sight word recognition. So if those areas are weak or poor, or those areas are missing, if the child is having difficulty recognizing the sounds or matching the sounds of and the sounds and the letters that represent them, he's going to be having trouble reading and therefore understanding what he is reading. Decoding is very important. Decoding and spelling, again, are together, they're interconnected, and the sight word recognition. So this part of the reading rope is very, very important, and this part is directly impacts language comprehension. If there's gaps in the word recognition strands or domain, then there's going to definitely be gaps in the language comprehension. So we need those two domains together so that eventually the oldest strands tie up And this is how skilled reading is developed. So what are some classroom support for struggling reader? For those who are struggling with reading, as I mentioned, systematic and explicit instruction, very important. Systematic and explicit instruction is a highly structured teaching approach where skills are taught explicitly and in a logical and sequential manner. There's a routine, there is a structure to the lesson, building from simple to complex concepts, using clear modeling, guided practice, and immediate feedback to ensure that students master the skill that is being taught. There needs to be a lot of practice uh, of the concept. We don't just say it once. The teacher provides that explicit instruction, and then there is a lot of opportunity for practice throughout the lesson. So the teacher clearly defines the skill and then and teaches the concept, models the what is being taught explicitly, and then children get a chance to practice what is being taught. When we talk about systematic, we talk about it's intentional. There's a clear and logical order. There's a scope and sequence in the curriculum that is used because one skill builds on another. It's not just random. There is a structure to it. Okay. Model reading fluency and reading comprehension in reading aloud and thinking aloud. Reading aloud is very important in modeling what reading aloud is very important in modeling expression. So children need to hear what fluent reading sounds like. And this can be done with echo reading. So the teacher reads part of the text and the children echo, repeat what the teacher just read. Or also another one is choral reading. Choral reading is also a good one because the children here read together and it's a safe space. Children are less likely to be shy about taking a chance and reading. So when they read together in choral reading, they are more able to practice what the teacher is reading. And the think aloud is the part where the teacher models the thinking, the models the what goes on in the reader's mind as he or she is thinking, is reading. So she models making connections. She models questioning the text or inferring and monitoring comprehension. All those things the teacher models while she's reading, so the children know what to do as they are reading on their own. Another big one is multi-sensory learning, which incorporates tactile and kinesthetic activities with visual and auditory methods. This is very important. Phonics instruction is not just teacher directed and the children are not involved. Children need to be involved. They need to interact with what is being taught. They need to practice using many multisensory methods, such as, for instance, like you see on the screen here, you need like using those interlocking letter cubes to build words, using sand. That's what you see there, sand to write the words in the sand, using Ilkonen boxes with the tiles so that they can use the tile to segment the sounds as they are hearing the words. Uh, there's also things like shaving cream, wiki sticks that they're used to make the words, and other kinds of like stencils or sandpaper where they can feel the roughness. And this kind of kinesthetic activities helps the children feel how the writing, feel the letters, especially for children who are having trouble or children who are might be dyslexic. So this helps them retain the information and it connects them, this physical kind of activity, the seeing and the hearing and the touching helps them to remember and retrieve the information more efficiently. So thank you so much. I hope this was helpful in a way. It was a quick one, but I will be doing another webinar on January 24th. I will include the link to that if you would like to register for that one as well. And here is, please, this is a link to the feedback survey. If you enjoyed what you saw, and you can complete this feedback survey for me. And if you have any questions, I would encourage you to email me. Here is my contact information, my website, literacyinsight.com. You can email me at tagreedsahli@gmail.com. Here's also my Facebook page and my YouTube channel. You could subscribe there too. And if you'd like to reach me via WhatsApp texting, you could do that too. Um, Please check out the website, see what other services I have to offer. And if you have any questions, you can include that on the feedback survey. So if you're watching the recording of this session, you can certainly complete the feedback survey and include your questions or any suggestions for other topics that you would like to have covered in the future sessions that I host. So again, thank you so much, and I hope to see you on the following session on January 24th. Thank you.